Hi, everybody. I'm Corey Philly, and I'm the Executive Director of the Vancouver Fringe Festival, which is running September 8th to 18th on Gravel Island. And we're here today to talk to Anthony Lee of Discounted Hotpot. But first, I'd like to actually say that we'd like to acknowledge we're on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. It is an honor to live, work, and fringe on these territories. So I'm just going to move right on in it. Hi, Anthony. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
Good. I feel much better today. I feel kind of refreshed today. It's sort of like I turned the page to the next week, and I'm really feeling eager about what's going to happen. How about yourself? Maybe if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to the audience and just talking a little bit about, where you what city you were born in, where you're from, that kind of thing.
I am Anthony. I am a filmmaker and a theater maker based in what is colonially known as Vancouver. English is my second language, so if I stutter, that's normal. I'm from Hong Kong, and I grew up there until the age of 17, and then moved here in Vancouver to continue with my university. And 6 years later, here I am making a French show.
Which university did you go to?
I went to Simon Fraser University.
Oh, you went to SFU, also my alma mater.
Yes.
And
it's funny because I actually went to the film program.
Right.
So I'm not technically, I didn't train in a theater school. I went to a film school. Mm-hmm. But over the course of my university, I thought, okay, well, I would love to take some theater classes. And then I ended up taking some clown classes and some directing classes with Stephen Hill and Adrian Wong.
Mm-hmm,
and
course.
Turns out probably one of my favorite classes at SFU.
Right.
Yeah, and that really changed how I see my practice. And now I'm like thinking about going to this clown school in France.
Right. We were just talking about that clown school in France with Shanice Stanislas of Mail Order.
Right.
They had gone over there and
Yeah.
I think kind of changed their life, actually. So this is a good question, though. So you're a film dude. You like film. It's not so far away from theater, but what sort of, was it always the imagination in this particular piece that you were going to do it as a theater piece, or did you see it as a filmed piece, or?
So when I was still in school, I always thought, okay, I want to do film, but then for some reason, theater opportunity just keeps coming. And I've started like doing theater in my high school as a tech, since I was like 12, 13 years old. So it's interesting that it keeps coming back. And over the course of the pandemic, I ended up working with a lot of theater companies as a live stream technician,
right,
because of my film skills. And then one thing leads to another. I ended up taking Adrian's class, and that was like in like the very beginning of the pandemic. Everything was online. So then Adrian was teaching this class called digital theater, mm-hmm. or something like that. And I took the class, and she found me a play. It was Selfie by Christine Quintana. Mm-hmm. And my idea was that I'm going to turn this play into some sort of a live stream cinema with like camera and cell phones and things like that. Great play to work with in mm-hmm. that medium. And then 2 years later, the play got presented at FODA.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Which is a digital online festival.
Yes.
That's what they do. Yeah.
It's the Festival of Live Digital Art.
There you go. Thank you, Anthony.
That was my directing debut in theater.
Cool.
And of course, like every now and then I would be making films, but those are like smaller scale. And plus, I've only graduated from SFU like last year.
Oh wow. Okay.
So
all right.
So I'm very young, very emerging.
Yeah.
But I thought, okay, well, I wanted to do something that's live performance in physically, and I always wanted to do a show with Hotpot and cooking. So when I saw that the Fringe was happening this year, I just submitted a title, and I know I can't write a 60-minute show, so I submitted the 30-minute category, and here we are.
And here you are.
Yeah.
How did you find that? Was it an interesting exploration to kind of do that? Your piece ended up in FOLDA, but what about that did you take away from that experience? I just am wondering how you felt at the end of doing that.
I think it really opened up the way that I was approaching creation.
Mm-hmm.
How how like when I took clown class with my like theater students, they were so much about, oh, let's just do it and try it out, and then we'll see if that works. And for me, that was such a new concept because I always have to like think about, oh, okay, will this cut together? Like if I write this is gonna, like, will the audience get it and things like that. It's a lot about calculation rather than just experimenting and try and error. I think the idea of try and error was something that screws into my brain after these series of theater creations and working with a lot of like amazing theater artists. That gave me the courage to, okay, well, next time if I'm on a film set or if I'm creating something that's with media, maybe it's also worth it to apply this technique as well.
I think we all set ourselves up for perfectionism at some certain times, especially if you are analytical and that you kind of approach the world like that. And then you allow but if you allow yourself the space to sort of, well, this could work, this could not work, we'll see. It's such a huge freedom that happens with it. I'm not always good at it, for sure, but I have to say the funnest times I've had is when I've done that.
And it's not just about the work too. It's also about how different people from their disciplines, like they just think differently, and sometimes like emerging artists, like going into it, there were some conflict, but I was really enjoying that part of the conflict. That taught me what I want to take from it and what I want to leave it, I think. Yes. Yeah,
for sure. I think it's a really interesting thing. I remember being also sometimes when you have I maybe I'll rephrase this in this way, is that I once did a workshop in Calgary with One Yellow Rabbit, who does a summer workshop, and I saw the piece, and thank you very much, it was good work.
Thank you for coming.
And I'm sorry, I forget the name of the young actor who was in it.
Her name is Carly.
Yes, great. She was lovely. I love the whole thing. It very much did remind me about being at the Peony in the trade show area.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. How you would like to describe this piece?
Discounted Hotpot Centre is, I would say it's a live cooking show about a down-to-her-luck lady, a sales lady trying to sell her hot pot package. So if you come in and see our show, you would expect somebody doing a sales pitch on you.
And with sort of broader themes, yes?
Yes. And what it really means to pick up this identity of being someone in Excel and the diasporic identity of being a Hong Konger living overseas. A voice that I have not seen too much in the arts, whether that's in film or theater. And a part of this project is to promote this voice. Maybe there isn't a lot of people doing these kind of work right now, but in 10 years, I believe there will be more.
I think you're right. I haven't always seen exactly this conversation. A little bit with Hong Kong Exile, maybe. That's a theater company. I'm not making that up. What do you think sort of prompted you to start thinking about it in this way? Like, what was I know there's been there's a huge change that is going on in Hong Kong right now. Is that what sort of was the springboard to starting to think about what the connection is, or how you have one foot in one world and one foot in the other?
When you go to a new country, like you stop seeing, like you want to detach from what you had, right? Because you want to fit in, and that's something that I resonate with in the last couple of years. And I go back and forth between, okay, well, like I should say, for example, I want to learn English, and then there's also the vice versa. Hey, that's my roots and things like that. Yeah, so then I ended up really wanting to make a show from this perspective.
Do you feel, from your perspective, do you feel like there is an imposition from quote unquote Canadian culture to speak English all the time, or do you feel like that was something internally you were grappling with? Maybe a combination of both.
Through the writing process, I was trying to figure out who are my audience. Is it the general public who doesn't know much about this culture and wants to be more interested in it, or is it people like myself who miss hot pot as much as I do? And I couldn't I couldn't figure out an answer because I, with a lot of shows that touches on like lived experience, it's inevitably hard to, how much exposition do I have to give to the audience before the Kongers audience think it's whitewashed.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was something that I was having so much trouble with. Like, there's also the other way around. Is like, are these all inside joke that nobody would understand? I think, and then at the end, I just, okay, you know what? I'm going to. I mean, I can't do a show that I don't enjoy watching.
Yeah.
So I'm going to work on a show that I like watching, which I guess it has both things. But you know, like in the last couple of showings, like we've seen some Kongers come in and they were giggling a lot.
Oh, that's good.
And I was really glad.
Yeah. Well, it is very funny. I mean, it's very funny. I think anybody can relate to it in that sense of trying so hard to do something and trying so hard to have a persona that is chipper and happy and all that kind of stuff, and still other stuff is happening underneath, and things aren't going well, really. Right?
Yeah, at the end, at the heart of it is someone sharing their vulnerability, and as audience, we all love seeing that. Oh, things are not going well. What do I do?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of the essence of clown, that, may I say. It's like, you know, it's like you set up a situation and then you keep on breaking the ability to fix the situation, you know. But so there were other people from Hong Kong in the audience who were laughing at it. But I was in an audience and there were, you know, people who looked like me, middle-aged white women, who were laughing at it also. Where do you, like, I think when I was watching the show, though, for sure, I was thinking, I feel like there's going to be another version of this somewhere down the line. Do you feel like you're like moving towards something? Do you feel like it's a complete, you know, thing?
I think this is exactly where I wanted to be at with this version of this Discounted Hotpot Centre. It was my first time attempting writing for theater, and it was my first time directing in-person theater. Just like a lot of shows, like a lot of comedy shows, like you don't really know whether some of the stuff will work until there's an audience.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that until like last Thursday. And which I'm glad, like some of the stuff really worked, and some of the stuff I do see rooms of improvements. And
that's cool.
And maybe next time we get to serve the hot pot food to the audience.
What I call your elevator pitch, and you're going to say, so describe your show in one sentence. Could you do it? And what would it be?
Hot pot show. Live cooking, Hong Kong. Well, I can't even formulate that was a really bad elevator pitch. You know, like when we first started to write the show, I approached my co-creator and assistant director Hillary. We were all like, okay, well, we don't want to write, we don't want to make a CBC show like. CBC means Canadian born Chinese.
Oh, okay.
Not the
going...
TV station. Yeah, because we share this lived experience in living in another city, and we want to share that from that perspective. Oh, okay. So how are we different from the CBC shows? Like, and then we list out the things that seen as like how the West sees Hong Kong, which is like think about like, you know, wet market, and you think about you know, like eating these Chinese food, and you think about like, you know, crowded street. We realized the thing that they were thinking is pretty much the same as what we were thinking. We were also thinking about the wet market. We were also thinking about like the crowds, and so then at the end, we came to the conclusion that maybe it's not so different. So then what is the thing that tells these two identities apart, like the second generation Asian Canadian and recent immigrants? We just thought we should do something. We should not actively trying to segregate that identity, but just reinforce what I know and what we know.
And it's interesting what you were saying is like, how do you root out, like how do you separate like the threads, you know, even for somebody who's more newly to the country, to Canada or Vancouver, and to people who see themselves as, you know, quote unquote a Canadian, or you know what I mean, who born here and all that stuff. It's interesting to me. There's still that conversation all the time.
Having lived here for 6 years, like I don't really know whether there is an answer. I was just talking to a friend the other day, and he was saying how there is like a lot of immigrants that moved here, that those are the newcomers, and what they see and what they experience are very different from what I have experienced. And I'm not even like that new. Like I've only moved here 6 years ago. So then there's always going to be waves and waves of like new experience that's going to challenge you, and maybe they're going to be like, no, what you have, it's that's very whitewashed. And then the next generation is going to go on, and maybe that's just what it is when you have to immigrate to a new country.
Maybe, yeah. You have some things you keep with you, and some things that change, and we're creatures of change, even though we don't like to think of ourselves that way sometimes, because it's just destabilizing.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you for sharing yours. I really appreciate it. It's very cool. Yeah, and thank you for coming and having a conversation.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.